Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. What a great summit, huh?
Yes.
I'm Jared Ragozzine, rhymes with magazine. I'm the director of Lean and Continuous Improvement at Bestbath Systems. I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt with 17 years experience in across many industries. I've worked in education, in healthcare, and manufacturing, most recently construction. My last position before joining Bestbath, I was working for Skywalker Properties on a George Lucas project. He's putting up a $1.5 billion museum up the street in Los Angeles. And I was able to work on that project with him on the composite exterior. As far as positions that I've held, I've been on the front line all the way through to business development and leadership roles. And so I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different industries and positions. My strengths really come down to people and process. And at one point, Lean fell in my lap, and I learned what I want to be when I grew up. I didn't know for years that there was a career track for people wired like me, wired like us. And so that's how Lean found me along that journey. I'm passionate about Lean. My specialty is creating positive continuous improvement cultures where everybody sees improvement as part of their daily work. And as a fun note, when I'm not at work, I like to play drums.
Hi everybody, my name's Jay Multanen. I'm also a musician. And when I wasn't on tour, I picked up shifts in my father's fiberglass factory. And Lean found me as well. I've been at Bestbath for 20 years now. And my sister and I bought the company with my father's money about 10 years ago. And then we kicked him out.
He voluntarily left.
So yeah, my parents are here. Hi, Mom. But I've had the joy of working many different roles, from chopping fiberglass on the floor to eventually running the operation, stepping out of the operations role and more into an owner seat. And I couldn't be more happy with the progress we've made in the last few years, even though we've been on this Lean journey for over 25. A little bit about Bestbath. We're located in Caldwell, Idaho, as we have our main factory there. We just expanded into Sparta, Tennessee, and we have a small operation there as well. And our Lean culture has been vital in helping get that plant up and running. We'll have a little bit of information about some of the small wins we've gotten already in Sparta. But we specialize in customizing baths and showers universally designed for people of all abilities.
Awesome. So today, our message is pretty simple. We're going to be talking about 3 key ingredients on how we've been scaling problem-solving capability at Bestbath. It really comes down to these 3 things: educate, empower, and reward. So to kick things off, just I wanted to rhetorically ask a few questions to get you thinking about is your company. How does your company do these 3 things? How do you educate, empower, and reward your workforce? And how do you scale problem-solving capability? So today we're going to share the Bestbath model. There's a lot to it, but we're going to share just some of the key elements. Considerations really, so that you can at least know and understand and apply to some degree maybe some of the ideas that we've come up with here, and maybe one that you come up with yourself or that gets shared across the group. So when we talk about educate, we're really talking about describing the gap so that we can solve the gap. And then we reward learning, really focused on that as a Lean organization. And so some of the learning objectives today, we're going to be focusing on practical PDCA and the power of a simple problem statement and how to write one. For solving the gap, we're going to be focusing on some of the key Lean tools that we pull in to do this on a daily basis. We've got our Lean boards, A3s, and we're going to share with you the idea of an A6. And for the reward element, we're going to share our profit share model with you, and it's very unique, and it's bottom up. This is something we're very proud of, is our retention over the last 5 years. The green line shows manufacturing industry. 63% is the average, and we've been 69 or almost pushing 90% for 5 years straight. And we believe that when we have a line of 250 people trying to get in the door, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but we think this is these are some of the key elements as we educate them and we empower them and then we reward them.
So one thing I want to just recap real quick, when we talk about education, my focus has been lean enterprise. We've had lean in the shop floor. We've had some varied success in administration, with our sales team, in the HR department, with IT. And so we're really trying to focus on getting the whole organization, the whole enterprise on the same page. In addition to that, Jared touched on it, we've got to scale critical thinking. It's not enough for us to have critical thinkers in leadership roles. I expect the same skill set of people walking in the door on day 2 for them to be working on developing these skills as the same skill set as we have in the executive boardroom. We've got empower, that's into action. That's where we get our momentum. That's where we keep our momentum and we move forward. And then rewarding, I'm a big believer in teams. And we win and we lose together. It's not because a CEO made a smart decision. And it's not because a hero saved the day on the shop floor. And then transparency is something that I think is really key to our success. If you're going to share in the winnings, you've got to build credibility, you've got to build trust, and that means speaking the whole truth. So part of our corporate shift, we've had some momentum with lean over the years, but one of the biggest shifts we've made, and this will go into our first section of education, was we took training out of the HR department and we put training into the lean department, and Jared was eager to take that on. He didn't know he was going to take that on when we hired him.
True story.
And in fact, to double down, we even stole the local high school principal and brought him into the private sector because we're great at what we do, but we're not experts in curriculum development, even though we think we're experts in the subject matter. So that's been also another really helpful addition to our team.
So if you look at the handout that you were given on the way in, hopefully each of you have one. If not, Sarah, do we have more? Raise your hand. There's a couple extras. Raise your hand if you didn't get one and want one.
They are in the app where they should be. You got the app, you should be able to see it.
Okay, there's a second attachment. Okay.
Great, so check the app if you'd like to take one home with you. Otherwise, your notebook, your Gemba notes should work just fine.
You can also just look on the paper of your neighbor as we go through this. These are just some prompts. I think you're still in a good place even if you don't have your own sheet. To begin with, I want you to think of a problem or a challenge at work that you're trying to solve right now. Or maybe it's a problem at home, and write it down so there's a space for that. And some other prompts here is, what is your approach to solving it? And what stage of problem solving are you in right now? And most importantly is this last question about a problem statement. Do you have one? And if you do, go ahead and write that down. And you can also work on it throughout this learning session together. So we'll come back to this handout. So educate. Bestbath University is what we call our system for learning and development. As a lean organization, we see ourselves as a true learning organization, so it's built on scientific thinking. We believe that anybody can do lean stuff, but if you're not thinking scientifically, you're not lean. So our Bestbath House of Lean looks like this. Our foundation has visual management, standardization, and core values. But the main point here is just want to share a little bit about the education or the classes that we teach. Between days 45 and 60, we'll bring folks through to learn about a handful of lean topics. We'll define lean as the elimination of waste through continuous improvement, to do that with respect for people, and a heavy focus on flowing value to the customer. Customer is one of my favorite topics in lean because it has that internal component, and everybody can do customer service. And if you break it all down to getting the external customer what they need, we all just need to focus on the person downstream from us. And then after this class, which is required for everybody, including temps, is we have a lean problem-solving class. And this is what we're going to dive into a little bit today, share you a sample of what that course includes. But the idea of scientific thinking, standardization, and at the heart is PDCA.
So obviously this was inspired by the Toyota House. We also drew some inspiration from the LEI's Lean Transformation Model, which if you haven't seen it, John Shook narrates a really cool 9-minute video. You can find it on YouTube. Check that one out. A lot of my friends, we have a lot of what my friends would call frivolous programs at Best Bath. Training programs, auxiliary programs, rewarding and empowering employees. And they say, that's great that you can afford to do that, Jay. But they do view it as frivolous. I view it as foundational. I can't afford not to do these things. And this particular program we're highlighting today, I think, is one of the more important ones. And the thing I love about it most after Jared took it over was the KISS. We're keeping it simple. And you may be able to imagine how scattered and the program was when I was running it. I was driving this dump truck of information, lean information, and backing it up on top of all the employees, and it was just too much. But Jared has really done a nice job of focusing just on PDCA and giving everybody the foundations, and I think you'll be surprised at how fast the employees have taken off with PDCA and coming up with very advanced topics and concepts all on their own.
So we're going to go through the PDCA wheel briefly. Probably everyone or most people in this room could come up and teach this. But in case you're new to lean and just exploring, or you've heard PDCA yesterday and today and want to know a little bit more about it, just make sure we're all on the same page. But also for the majority of us, this is how we teach PDCA, and I think of it as just practical PDCA. And it gives us common language so that we're all, one word speaks volumes. So first in the plan phase, there's 3 key elements. It's just understanding current conditions separate from target condition. This really helps us to frame gap. It's also where the problem statement gets formed. And then after we root cause the gap and understand why it's happening, then we look for the proposals, our countermeasures. In other words, 7 alternatives is what we call this. And we really push for creativity around this, oftentimes because, people don't want to plan, they want to do. And there can be a lot of jumping to conclusions or assumptions made, and so this is a kind of a slow you down type of a mechanism to just look for 7 alternatives on how we might be able to close that gap. And this is done as a team. The key here is that we don't want to substitute money for brains. We don't want to throw $80,000 at some solution. See if we can come up with a no cost or low cost and high impact solution. So we list out 7 options and we pick one, and that's the one that we're going to go, and we're going to do that. This is the triple P. Just before you dive into action, it's just getting clear on your purpose, your process, and your payoff. What you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and why bother. And while doing, you check. What are the questions that you ask when you're in the check mode?
How's it going?
Like that. How's it going? What are we learning? Is gap closing the key question that we ask at Bestbath is, are we hitting the target? So where on this model did target show up? This was back in the plan phase, right? And so we're very clear on where we're heading. We're not just talking about more of something or less of something. We want to be very specific. And are we hitting it or not? So this is a yes/no question. And if it's a yes, then our act is to go ahead and standardize that change. We want to inform the SOP and then let everybody know. Train everybody to a new standard. We use TWI job instructions, so we train in a standard way. And then we make sure that everybody's on the same page. We move to that standard together so that you don't just have day shift doing it the new way and swing shift doing it the old way. So it takes time to do this, but we prefer to front load instead of have to retrain and deal with other issues like that. Now, this is a yes/no question in the check phase. Are we hitting the target? So if it's a no, we're not hitting it, then our act is going to be, of course, to pivot. And that's where PDCA becomes a learning cycle, and I like to teach it cyclically, even though on an A3 it's rectangular and displayed and broken out in a different way. It's really a learning cycle, and we do this naturally. We're wired this way. This is how we teach it at Bestbath. This is a short video of our from the Lean Problem Solving class, where we're using, this is the puzzle build activity. This is something that Mike Rother put together. By raise of hands, anybody in the room using this activity to teach problem solving? Okay, cool. We can teach this in about an hour. We bring in a group of 4 to 10 people, break up into teams, and the goal is try and build the puzzle in a certain amount of time. And at first, it takes them about 60 seconds or so, current condition, and their goal is to get it down to something like 25 seconds. And so we learn just in fun and simple ways how to frame a problem using facts and data. There's 250 people or so at Bestbath, and we've had just about 200 come through. And it's really cool to see in just a matter of a short time, about a year or so, the impact that it's having. And we'll share some of those examples with you.
Here's one of the keys. I love the paradox. Lean is bottom up, yet lean is top down. And this is our executive team going through the program, walking the walk. It's not just lip service. However, one of the big challenges is getting everybody on board, even leadership. And yes, even at Bestbath, this owner couldn't crack the whip and just say, "You'll believe." It's a sales job. It's a sales job in your organization. And you may think, hey, I'm in healthcare, I'm not in sales. Or, hey, I'm in operations, I am not in sales. And that's bullshit. If you've ever asked somebody to marry you and they said yes, you're a salesperson. If you've ever asked a friend out to coffee and they said no, and you said, but when? And they said yes, you're a salesperson. So really, it's the way I did it with our executive team probably won't be the way you'll end up doing it. But I'm happy to brainstorm with you or tell you exactly how it happened. But we're all drinking the Kool-Aid now. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I mean, it spreads. It spreads throughout the organization. It's spread throughout the enterprise. Maybe start small from department, cellular, cell to divisions, other sites. We've found it spread into our community. We've found that it, as many of you know, it spreads to your customers. It spreads upstream to your vendors. So it's a really cool, empowering message that gets everybody on the win-win-win page.
So it starts in the classroom, this education, and of course, like LEI, I would say we want to learn by doing. That's really where we get to the not just knowing something, but understanding it, is having hands-on. So here's an example of Luttrell from our Tennessee facility. There's 35 people there, and they're making walk-in tubs. And he's got PDCA wheel up on the back of his lean board, and he's got the Kata model, if you're familiar with that. And his challenge is that in 3 months from now, his department needs to be converted to a visual workplace, so 5S on steroids. And he currently doesn't have the amount of time, like his staff is booked from the beginning to the end of the shift, and he's curious how he's gonna get this time. He figures that he needs 30 minutes per person per day in order to get there. And so he looked at current condition and he said, all right, I've got 377 square feet. I'm at the bottom left circle, and this laser pointer is not that great. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Target condition is 410 square feet. So he framed that gap for the team. They're all standing there in a huddle, and he said, all right, what are the 7 proposals on how we're gonna do this? And you can read it for yourself, but in case it's tough in the back, one guy breaks away from the part early and starts the next one. Next idea, pre-cut materials. Run multiple parts at the same time. Have the spray gun set up at 6:30. In other words, 30 minutes before everybody else shows up, ask the maintenance team to do it. Get the schedule earlier. Keep the line charged instead of purge it each night. And they did some tests to make sure that there were no curing issues. And then break down the day into quarterly goals. So in other words, it's a 10-hour shift, so every 2.5 hours to be at like 100 square feet or so. And what's really cool is he was just taught the basics of lean. He doesn't even know that he's pulling in some of these advanced ideas like standard work and line balancing and single minute exchange of dies. He's just taking and running with this. I mean, in fact, he's sprinting. As a result, I reached out to him last week and I asked him how this is going. And he says, going great. We implemented, I'm just looking for one idea, right? He's like, we implemented all 7. They all worked. 5 of them are still working. The other 2 were doing PDCA on to see if we could still get those gains. And he added, without me even asking, our next target condition is 425 square feet. Beautiful. So here he is thinking scientifically, but he's communicating in such a way that he can bring his team along. They can lead this at the board, and I can have quick dialogue with him as well. So now it's your turn. Let's practice forming a problem statement together. This is also on your handout. If you don't have it, I'll read through the possible answers. How would you describe this problem? We've got an electricity bill, and I'm gonna give you 4 possible answers. 1 is this month's bill is way too high. 2, dang, we must have used the AC too much. 3, July's electricity bill is through the roof, way more than last summer. And 4, the electricity bill for July 2022 was $182 when the last 2 Julys was $75.
How many think it's A? How many think it's B? C? Okay, why is it D?
Clear gap.
Specific, clear gap. What else? Yeah. Current and target. Yeah. So super easy.
The other ones have junk words too. Like, what's way too high mean?
Yeah, if it's subjective, not specific, not helpful. And also 2, dang, we must have used the AC too much. This is jumping to conclusions. Now, it's possible that that was the cause, but we're all the way at the beginning on the problem statement. This is gathering the background, trying to get our arms around current condition. We do want to get to that, but not right now. Just get very clear on the problem, put a period, and then move on to why and how you're going to close that gap. So these are really simple ideas, but this is, again, how we frame it at Bestbath, and it's working. And yeah, same thing on number 3, through the roof. We call these junk words. So key points are use facts and data whenever you can, and then comparing and contrasting is a really powerful way to craft your problem statement.
Okay, so to wrap up the education portion, we've really simplified it, just focusing on PDCA, not getting too expansive with some of these advanced concepts, and also focusing on helping everybody come up with clear problem statements. And that's really helped us move this thing along. So moving into the second learning objective, into empower, this is where we get to apply it. And look, on the job training, is a fine way to learn, but it can be very difficult. I'm a big advocate of learning while doing, yet I think the foundation is so important, and I think that's something that so many organizations miss up front. We're going to talk about lean boards, which we used to call scoreboards. I am probably most of all the successes and failings we've had in lean, the one constant we've been able to maintain is our scorecards. And the basic principle of this is, are we winning or are we losing? Everybody deserves to know. I don't play a basketball game without keeping score. I don't play the enterprise game without keeping score either. And it's okay if we're falling behind. It's just not okay if we're constantly not winning. Question. We're also going to cover in this next section the 3 elements of daily work that we believe everybody in the organization is responsible for. Does anybody want to take a stab at what we think they are?
So independent of your role, and independent of what level of the organization you work in, 3 things that everybody has in common, 3 things everybody's responsible for.
So, yes, safety, yes. But that's a given. That's a pay to play. That's like, we need money to be in business. So everyone's responsible for maintaining their job or their role or their responsibility, containing their job, responsibility, or role when there's a gap, and improving their responsibility and their role. And that's one of the unifying messages that we talk about.
So here's a picture of our lean board, and the center stage, right in the spotlight, are these 3 elements of daily work. So when we talk about maintain, what are we maintaining? That's our standards. Here we have KPIs as an example of some standards, and it could be that there's a gap. If so, then contain is the idea of your short-term countermeasure. It's like, what are we doing right now to prevent this from spreading or getting worse? And if it's a Band-Aid, that's fine, so long as you have a 3rd element of daily work and don't rely on just containment. Otherwise, the problems aren't going to get solved. They'll keep coming back up. And so Band-Aiding is okay, but that's short term. And then the 3rd element is improvement. And that's where we circle back, root cause it, and go deeper. Maintain, contain, and improve really makes a lot of sense for folks. They can get their minds around this, and it's simple for problem solving. When there's an issue, take it to the board. And that's what people do. Let's go to the board and solve this. Let's work through it. And the goal really is to surface, swarm, and solve problems. And in traditional organizations, in fact, this came up in one of the learning sessions. There was a really clever cartoon along these lines. But the idea of bringing up problems. And in some companies, you might get in trouble for that. Maybe that's happened to you, and that's no fun. You know, what does that teach us? Well, last time I'm bringing up a problem. In lean organizations, it's the other way around. It's almost like if you're not surfacing problems, then you're in trouble or something more along those lines. And the latter is what we subscribe to at Bestbath. We're okay with, we want to know what the struggles are, and we want them to be worked on and addressed. Yeah, this is where we can really get into the learning space, and we reward that learning. So here we have an A3. I guess I should highlight, this is the problem-solving section, right? As Jay said, if we're deviating from a standard or if there's gap, we try and use visual management to solve that. So here we have an A3. There's been a lot of reference to A3. They go here. This is the one that we use. A quick flyby. You're familiar with this. It's based on PDCA. Note the ratio of the plan phase and where it starts. We've got a problem statement up at the top left. Really just get clear on what's the gap. Be clear and concise, no junk words, use facts and data, etc. Skipping ahead, just bring to the surface a couple of key points. That target condition, just be really specific on where you're aiming, because when you get into the check phase, you're going to reflect back on this. Then you root cause it, but then this is where the 7 alternatives would go on an A3. And again, we don't want to substitute money for brains. we get clear on the process, and then when we check, what are we checking? Are we hitting the target? And I love how in a couple of today's sessions, the keynote and then one other, there's been a big focus on the celebration of the win, celebration of the learning that's in the ACT phase, along with standardization and really just coming up with a sustained plan.
Okay, I want to tell a story about Jonathan. But before I do that, I'll set the stage that about 8 years ago, we had this BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. And it was going to be a massive improvement for the company. It was our biggest capital investment is in our tools, in our molds. This was going to save dramatic amount of service time for our biggest investment. This was also going to save a ton of labor and a ton of scrap. Now, I know I just used junk words, but it was 8 years ago. You'll just have to trust me. Has anybody ever shared a really big opportunity with leadership only to get smacked down with something like, we've tried that before, it doesn't work? Yeah, I've had that too. Enter Jonathan. Jonathan, well, first, let me just share with you that if we were to achieve this, which we did, it just didn't pencil, we would be the first open molded composite manufacturer that I'm aware of to get a net edge on a finished part. And we did so using just some simple materials like high density polyethylene that doesn't stick to our process. But it was a little over-engineered and it was a little clunky. And we ended up scrapping the project. We couldn't make it work. We tried for 18 months to make this thing work. So Jonathan comes in the picture. He happened to come to work for us out of prison. We taught him some of the things that we know. He felt empowered. He earned the trust and respect of his team. He was a natural leader. He worked his way up into supervision. And he was never a part of this process. He came into the company about a year later. But he said, hey, I have this idea. And our culture welcomed it. And what he did was he started small. And he's making some really cool improvements. Jared's going to tell you about them.
So some quick visuals to give some context to the A3 that's kind of watermarked. And this is a mold. This is it's a molded product, so the end result will be the inverse of this. We spray several layers on top of this, and then out pops a shower. And so on the very edge, Jay, if you can kind of highlight that, this is the nylon stick, or the HDPE, that's basically just clamped onto that lower flange. As we move through the process and spray on some of the first layers, it's still there, but it's starting to get material collecting on it. Later we spray the fiberglass on it, and it gets nice and woolly. And then there it is. This is when we pull it off. There's somebody at the end of the line. We've got a U-shaped cell, and they need to get a plastic wedge under there in order to kind of break that seal and demold it. And without this flange, it's really difficult for them to get it under there. It takes more time to try and find a way in. And second of all, it starts to chip up our tooling. So when we demold, and this is a final product right here of what it looks like, that's a best bath, a best shower. So there's some context. This was Jonathan's A3. I'm not going to read through the problem statement. You can if you want, but it's very detailed. He's got numeric values in there. And he estimated this was going to save $19,000. Well, as a result of this A3, he ended up saving $61,000. There was savings in 1 year. Yep. And so just wanting to highlight here, I'm really proud of Jonathan and others, but he's just one example of somebody who was relentless going after this target condition that we needed to meet. And it started out as a smaller improvement, an A6, which we'll get to. It turned into an A3, and I watched him over a year's time to generate this result, and I'm just really, really proud of him. He didn't give up on it, and he used this A3 to capture his thinking. This thing, I watched it change. He used it the way that it should be used, is just as a live document. So, and we have a lean advisory committee, which he joined halfway through the year, and we really focus on PDCA and being able to teach the model like we went over today to A3 improvement project teams as they kick off, just so that everybody's got that common language. And then there's a resource for throughout the project if needed. And when he joined the advisory team, he got really good at PDCA and A3, and he's like, I got to use this. I can't solve this. And it was so cool to see him take the tool, find a need for it, and plug it in and get some results.
Okay, I've got some case studies that I want to share with you, some examples of how across the enterprise and across the supply chain, how thinking critically as an organization can really help the organization and help others. So this starts like most good stories start with grandma. And in the early 90s, the Congress passed the ADA law. And just shortly after that, my grandma could not get in and out of her bathtub safely. At the time, we were producing just commodity showers. So that being the situation, the task was we needed to remodel her bathroom so she could stay in her home and not go to the home. So the action, there was no option available that was good for her. There was no adequate solution for her. And so we designed one. And the result was she lived happily in her home until her dying day, about 15 years later. In fact, it was a pivot point for the company. We changed our name and our branding over it. Number two, so the situation was we were at a 2-day shower install for some of our vendors. We needed to create some separation in the market and from our competitors. So the task was we customize according to function and aesthetic design. Action, we design, so in order to, with all of the options that we have, we needed some separation. We designed some value into the product to make it easier and quicker to install for our customers. Stuff like we shipped product with trim kits, designed innovative snap and clip joints that were unique to our industry at the time. Pre-leveled shower floors. This made it easier to install without compromising the integrity of the product. So the result was we realized a 75% reduction in install time. We have installers now that are getting in and out, can get in and out of the home with a shower install in 4 hours. Third example, situation. So as we started our lean journey, this resulted in some outrageous claims that we were able to make and prove. Dramatic lead time from our factory, something that the value add custom assembly that was happening in our factory and not in the field any longer, saving our customers time. But this was met with skepticism, especially from new customers. Apparently in construction, they don't always believe the suppliers can meet their commitments. So the task was, we found ourselves in a situation where we had to honor our commitments, but guess who didn't honor their commitment? Our suppliers. So it was actually here up the road in Carlsbad, California, in the middle of August. In order to make our commitment, we shipped our units, and I got voluntold to go down and install some of the accessories that our suppliers shipped late to us. So we're here in March and it's awesome. In August, on a job site, there's no electricity, and so I'm walking up and down the stairs because the elevators don't work, and there's no AC. It was pretty difficult, but the result was twofer. One, we got an accurate time study of the value that we actually were able to create and share with our customers. In addition to that, we recognized early on, because this was 20 years ago, the importance of building trusting relationships with our suppliers.
So these are examples of, PDCA being used to free up capacity in a department, also A3s that are serving other departments, and now just really elevating with these examples to the supply chain so that we can, and in construction, that's really what we've been using Lean for over 20 years, and we love that these principles are catching on more and more. But while we develop our Lean enterprise, so that it's not just ops getting these gains with Lean, but all the service departments as well, we're really trying to influence up and downstream as well. And it's, I feel bad for our competition because we're using Lean as a competitive weapon in the marketplace. I don't know how Jay would feel about having our competition walk into our factory.
They can come in. Yeah,
I would be open to it because, and you can copy everything we're doing, don't care. By the time you catch up to that moment, we're going to be so far past you, and good luck, because of the thinking of every individual on every level. On your handout, well, let's go back to problem statements. So in addition to this idea of a problem defined as a problem half solved, what I've learned in my experience of problem solving is that if you can get the improvement team to describe in clear and concise terms what the problem is, you're 75% of the way solved. It is worth getting clear on what the problem is and making sure that everybody understands that. And it's been a game changer for Bestbath. You can think about Luttrell or Jonathan or any of those examples. So what I'm going to do is give you 1 minute, if you can get out a pen, and write down a problem statement that's connected to the challenge or that problem that you're having at work, or maybe something going on at home that I asked you about in the beginning of our session. So go ahead and take a minute to write down a problem statement. All right. Yeah, has someone been able to craft a problem statement based on facts and data that you'd be willing to share?
Come on, we're all friends here. Thank you, Jason.
So a problem statement would be product sales have declined by 30% over 3 months.
Okay. Problem, product sales have declined by 30% over 3 months. Hey, that's good. It's not jumping to conclusions, but it's clearly defining that's an issue. Any feedback from the group? Good problem statement? How can we improve? Jared, you got some feedback?
Yeah, is gap clear, right? So are you trying to get back to the same level that you were prior to the 30% decline? Are you aiming for above that? So maybe just adding in that detail. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for speaking up.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate the brave soul in the room. And sometimes these, these problems might not be appropriate to share, so definitely respect that. So moving on, when I joined Bestbath, I was starting to meet people, and in that process, I was hearing a theme, a pain point, a rub that was consistent with many people, and it was this idea that, and I quote, Jay requires an A3 for every improvement. So I asked Jay about that.
I'm glad he came to the source. The truth is, I didn't want an A3 for every improvement. In fact, I was kind of disgusted when I'd get A3s for, like, I need a push broom rebristling, or let's sharpen the saws. What I did want was I wanted all the improvements documented. I was tired. I mean, we had no problem with improvements. We were making improvements every day. We had problems with sustaining the improvements. So documentation and storytelling was really what I was after.
So we brought something in to help solve that. Here we have a gap of target condition. Jay wants documentation on every improvement. Current condition, partial documentation. And so here we have on the left an A3 typically an 11 by 17 document. We pulled in something called the A6. Quick history on what this is, and it's basically a mini A3. It's a play on alphanumerics. We took liberties on this. It's postcard sized. It's for quick wins, just do it. Think Paul Akers, 2-second lean, that kind of an idea. The history of it is I created the A6 in Spokane, Washington, when I was working for a company where the company owner wanted a visually managed improvement idea system that was fueled by the employees. And that was the birth of the A6. Since then, I've been to other companies where I had never been before, and this was there, starting to show up. And in this case, for 7 alternatives on how to close this gap, we went ahead and pulled it in.
Those are yours, by the way. I mean, take them with you.
So yeah, on the back of your handout is the front and back of an A6. We've also got several pads. You can tear one off or take a pad with you if you want. If you've got an idea, even today, write it down. Quick flyby of this one is, you've got an idea that you put it down. The wastes on the left, we use the acronym to wisdom. It's like a toast to say goodbye to waste, right? So you'll recognize those 8 categories, and check all that apply. And another key point is the bottom right here, we're PDCA. In this case, since we pretty much know that the next step we're going to take is going to solve the problem because it's a quick win, then we use PDCA to just shade in the progress. Are you in the plan phase? And when you get completed, then that whole wheel needs to be filled in, and then then it's complete.
Show how it works, Jared.
This is how it works. Back to the lean board, down in the improvement section. Again, the 3 elements of daily work are maintain, contain, and improve. And on the so with A6s, the way it works is it's a pull system. There's 3 sections down at the bottom. Toward the left is the opportunities. In the middle is in process, and then to the far right is the completed. The A6 is the Kanban. There's min-maxes in each section. And if there's no room on the lean board, then you need to you can fill out your A6, but keep it at your desk or in your locker until there's a spot. Because I've seen where they started getting put all around the edges, and it's like, hang on, we're limited on our improvement time, right? So this helps bring some order to it. And some people have asked me, like, well, when do I get a turn? Well, as soon as there's a spot in the middle that opens up. And so that's when we encourage, hey, just go ask that person if you can help. And that drives teamwork, which is really cool. And so rule number 1 with these A6s is somebody's first idea can't be their last because it was handled poorly. In each department, the manager owns the lean board, and we expect that they do not pull an idea off the board without running it past me first. And it's not because I'm going to decide whether they should do that idea, implement it or not. It has more to do with it's a coaching opportunity. For example, if the manager doesn't like the idea and they're looking at it and saying, what do I do with this? I want to take it off the board. Well, do you understand it? So you can go and ask that person, tell me more. Maybe that person doesn't write the most clear, and a verbal description is going to help you understand. Or a question like, what's the waste that will be driven out as a result of this? And if the employee says waste, well, then you're at knowledge gap, and there's the opportunity to coach. Or, does it connect? We didn't show on the far left, but that's where we have our true north, our X matrix, and things like that. But these can also be connected to that. That's another question, is how does this help us to reach our strategic goals? So this is where, an idea gets completed. There's a spot opens up in the middle. We pick one. It might be related to something we're containing right now. It might not be related to that at all. And then from the locker or the desk, then we can bring one in. So that's how that works. And it works really, really well. For ingredients of a true continuous improvement culture, and I mentioned that's kind of my specialty, is where everybody sees improvement as part of their daily work. We have A6s for the small stuff, A3s for the bigger stuff, Kaizen events, or rapid improvement workshops. The interesting thing is that when it comes to A3 and Kaizen event, these tend to be done in pockets, or maybe an improvement event is 1 week and for 3 weeks we're not improving. Or an A3 is going, but it's some people working on it and not others. And so my question is, can you get everybody every day with these two ingredients? And so we found that the A6 helps us to get there. Otherwise, it's discontinuous improvement. So a true continuous improvement culture of everybody every day. It's definitely supported by these A6s. They're engaging. It gives people a voice. And several times during the Lean Fundamentals class, which my preference is to teach it one-on-one, people say to me, I can't believe you care what I think. And I've had some people with tears in their eyes, just shocked that we want to involve them. Like, I've never been asked what I think. I'm always told what to do. That's heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. But we're doing the right things there. It supports this problem-solving culture that we're here today to talk about how we're scaling it at Bestbath. And it's definitely done with respect for people. And Toyota added this 8th category of waste for skills. We don't want to be guilty of that one by not asking for people's ideas, for their input, for their creative solutions, for their inventiveness. We want their input. And whether people are incentivized with profit share or not, people will engage if you ask what they think. And then this take home, this is a nugget that I've held on to for years and share it freely, is this idea that people will support the world that they help create. And if the hardest part of Lean is to sustain, there you go.
And they'll engage if they trust you.
So here's a photograph of an actual Lean board. This is in tooling and accenting. Here's a couple more. They're in all departments. This is HR and sales.
Okay, so you can see the results speak for themselves. 90% of these improvements were A6s. And this happened to be just 6 months after we purchased the Tennessee plant. And you can see we're even making some momentum just even 6 months into it. And we had a ton of cleanup to go into and get some foundational stuff put into place. And this was just a part of it, but they were willing to jump on board right away.
I'm going to share a couple examples with you really quick. And by the way, steps reduced 367 miles. That's 735,000 steps we were paying people to walk and add no value. And it's jaw-dropping to people when you take an improvement, you annualize it out. It's very inspiring and eye-opening. It definitely reinforces this idea of learning to see. 2, 3 examples really quick of A6s in Tennessee, where we made this acquisition. We taught them Lean fundamentals, we rolled out Lean boards, and then there was an A6. And the first person to put an idea up on the board was, according to the locals there, the last person they would have expected to participate. Quiet guy, maybe just needed a chance to write it down, right? And his idea was really cool. It was simple: get another drill. He was in an area where he's drilling out the jacuzzi holes and they're different diameters, and he just wanted a second drill to keep the most commonly used drill bit sizes loaded. And that was a $2,000 savings across a year. The drill that he needed was $450, so we basically got that drill for free, and then some, right?
It's another A6 win. Abel noticed that, hey, I know you guys have this expectation of what we're supposed to produce in a day, but I am noticing that at the end of the shift, there's always a mad rush to complete the quota. He said, can't we just set a pace through the day? And that was music to this musician's ears. It's like, yeah, that's tempo. Of course. Like, let's know exactly what we need to get done before first break, what we need to get done before lunch, what we need to get done before second break, and what we need to get done before we go home. And now it's working like meter.
So if something's frustrating, something's bothering you, again, we give folks a voice, and there's a tool at their fingertips that they can use to their advantage.
Okay, so we've got, huddles are a good thing. I told you I love sports, I love teams, and all good teams huddle. Even the no-huddle teams, they huddle at timeouts, and they huddle on the sidelines, and they huddle in the locker room. Volleyball teams huddle after the point rally. Softball teams, huddle in the dugout, and they huddle at the mound when it's time for the manager to take the ball. So these are critical for us. And I don't care what the frequency is, that's up to the manager, but I care that it happens, whether it's daily, twice a day, 3 times a day, once a week. That's up to their discretion. And then Gemba walks, this is where we get to walk the walk, and this is structured. You can see our schedule up there. We get to see how people are thinking about problem solving. The most powerful part about our Gemba walks, which we call our lean walk around, is ownership, leadership, goes through and visits every single department throughout the organization on a schedule every month. And this is a powerful moment where we have made it safe for everybody to talk about the problems that they're trying to solve in their department. And this is an opportunity where we get to provide support, especially if we need it, and it helps us make better decisions in the boardroom.
Exactly. As one on the leadership team, being current with current condition, it makes all the difference.
And by the way, the team members are the ones presenting this to the president of the company. And they feel confident and comfortable because they understand.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so now we're getting to the reward section. We made 2 important commitments early on when we adopted that lean was going to be a part of our fabric of the company. Number 1 was we never are going to lose headcount because of a lean improvement. And number 2 is, well, first off, let me expand on that a little bit more. These are some of our most valuable assets, the employees. They know our customers, they know our clients, they know our product, they know the organization. So if we improve, it's just if we make an improvement and we don't need the same headcount in the department, that's just a wonderful training opportunity to grow the organization. And it's a wonderful training opportunity for them to try something new. The second is when we win, we all win. And I love the Spanish word for business, negocios, but I love their word for profit share. It's ganancias, winnings. Yeah, we share the winnings. And so this is a unique structure. It's bottom up. The company takes a certain percentage to make sure that we can pay our taxes and that we can continue to make capital investments. And we share those values with the employees. After that, we split the profits to continue to grow the company and share the winnings. And the first group that gets paid is the entry-level group. And once that bucket is filled, then we go up to the leads. And once that bucket is filled, we go to the supers and on and on. And so the premise here is that the decisions that are made at leadership, they have the most impact in the organization long term maybe, but the day-to-day impact happens here at the entry level. And so when there's a partial profit share payout, say the cutoff is at the supervisors, and a disgruntled manager comes to me, and maybe we're consistently just hitting the supervisor level, and the manager comes to me and says, the supervisors are taking home more money than me. It's a great, courageous conversation that we get to have. Like, what kind of decisions are we making that aren't allowing us to get to the level we know we can achieve? And so I think it's just a really powerful model. And again, we share the entire P&L with the organization. I have a fundamental belief that people are smart. And everybody understands, like, to a certain degree, finance. And if not, then we're here to help. But everybody is able to understand the operation of a business. I love it when I got the question earlier this year when in a company meeting said, hey, Jay, what are the Multanans going to do with $650,000? And the answer was, well, first we're going to pay taxes, and then next we're going to continue to invest back in this company. We had just purchased Tennessee, and I was able to explain, like, that money is not going to line my pockets. It's going to go back into the organization and help us grow this enterprise that we're all a part of. You can see Jared pop up those values. So like, this is real money, and this is paid monthly, and it's paid rapidly. So kind of instant gratification for entry-level employees. And we already pay great wages, but when we win, it's like it just helps reward that buy-in that we're trying to foster in the beginning.
And how did this start?
Oh, well, Dad was going to work himself to death. And he said, I wish I could get everybody to work like owners. And Mom said, well, why don't you pay them like owners?
So as a recipient of this, and to the tune of 11 months in each of the last 2 years, it's very generous and very unique. I don't know if you've heard of anything like this before, but the whole bottom-up idea definitely matches my mindset that I've learned from people who are professional I've seen in my life as mentors. It's really just that outward mindset, looking out for others in a lean organization. If you invert the triangle, the whole idea of the greater your responsibility, the greater you need to see yourself as a servant, right? Customer service. And so it definitely drives that across the organization. I've never seen anything like it. It's definitely part of how we scale problem-solving culture.
And we share these numbers with all the employees as well, as you can expect. And sometimes jaws drop when they look at leaderships. They get $2,900 every month, and yeah, like we can explain it, and we can justify it, and we're just everything's above board. We get to be transparent.
So we're coming to nearing the end of the slides, and so just wanted to share the profit share metric. In the last 5 years, this is how many months it's paid out. In green is partial, so pretty cool. When it comes to educating, empowering, and rewarding employees to solve problems, it's led to some of the following solutions. For on-time shipping, and then all of these are 2022 compared to 2023. The target's 98%. We were at 95, we got to 99. On-time delivery from our vendors, we were aiming for 96. We landed at 94, and it became 98. Overtime dropped from $500,000 down to 100,000, so 400% improvement. And for quality, which we measure the inverse, we were trying to be at 10% defects or less. We were at 11.5% and dropped 3 points down to 8.5. So in summary, educate, empower, and reward. These are the 3 key pillars on how Bestbath scales problem-solving capability. And it's really describing and solving the gap, involving everybody every day, and then rewarding learning and sharing in the winnings, where we all, if there's winning, we're all winning together.
So this is our secret sauce, is the culture. And we're shaping our future by developing the people. We're all winning and we're losing together. The employees want to be a part of Bestbath. As Jared mentioned earlier, I can't grow fast enough. We're sitting on 250 applications of people who want to come to work for us. And I think that's a fairly unique problem in today's market. We've got, a best-in-class turnover rate, and it's because of our culture. It's because we're shaping tomorrow by developing the people.
If I can jump in right there on the takeaways, if you look at the bottom of your handout on the backside, ideas for my company to build and scale problem-solving capability. Just take a note. This is what we do to scale problem-solving. It's how we educate, it's how we empower, it's how we reward. So these are ideas for you to consider. Pick one if you like it. Maybe none of these apply and you had an idea come to you during this session. Just write something down. Takeaways are just using a common language, like for problem solving, like PDCA. It's been huge for us. Just stating the problem in terms of the current condition and target condition framework to show gap. It's been huge. and giving employees, giving them a voice and then recognizing them for their contributions.
So all these things are what makes up our culture, and this culture, in my opinion, is more powerful than any technology that we could invent or implement. And so, how are we on time? I'd love to take some questions. Jared and I will be in the learning lab if you'd like to chat. If you want the real truth, I think my dad's going to hang around for a while.
Let's start with questions.
Yeah,
if there's any questions from the group.
Thank you. Really good stuff. Really enjoyed this presentation. I have a quick question regarding allocating time for PDCA. So I've tried to incorporate it in different ways at different companies. There was one point that we were really only enabling employees to do PDCA for 30 minutes every 2 weeks. So like we really see, or what I've really had in my experience is we support PDCA, everybody's on board with it, but then allocating time for it. So I see that you guys have a schedule for Gemba walks, but outside of that, how are you enabling your front line to continuously interact with those boards and do PDCA?
So that's a general question. I'll answer it generally, but try and get specific. You know, I've heard of a lot of different methods and tried different things. It's almost like, you know, is it the 10% you just don't book? You know, it's like scheduling a job. It's capacity planning. We've got, you go from one kind of work to another kind of work, you know, production work. And if you're in a service organization, there's a form of production there, or improvement work, or training. It's kind of in that realm, and you're limited to time. For us, when we've got the lean huddles, and as Jay mentioned, they're as often as needed, then that's the time to do PDCA. You could have 1 or 2 people at the board. You could have the whole team there. You could have another department come over. And so it kind of flexes with the need. Yeah, that's an important question. I'd like to answer that better, but that's what I got for right now. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, good question.
All right, appreciate the sharing. I can tell you guys are both passionate, especially Jay. I can tell you're super passionate about it. 2 things. One, just clarification, A3 versus A6. I'm assuming that A3s are more for when we don't know the root cause and we need to apply some more critical thinking, and A6s are just do it type things. Is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're 100% sure the next step you're going to take is going to solve the issue, jump into an A6. It gives that documentation and we can quantify the waste. Yeah, A6 is for solving more complex problems.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry, A3 is for solving more complex problems.
Thanks. And then the other piece was around huddles. In terms of tiered huddles, are they similar to your profit sharing model? Do you have huddles structured at those different levels? And if so, how often do those occur?
So they're daily or weekly. Some departments, it's just based on need. Like production staff, they'll meet weekly. Production meets daily at the beginning of each shift. If there's a problem they're trying to solve, they'll meet more often than that. Like, hey, let's do an experiment, see if we can close this gap that we just identified. Let's meet after lunch. Otherwise, it's just daily. And every lean board at the top left has the huddle schedule and how long it's supposed to last. And then there's a timer, so you have your plan versus actual. The lean walk or the Gemba walk schedule is also on there. It's 12 minutes, but in terms of how often or for how long people are meeting, that's really up to, just based on need, and the manager can be there and the supervisors are empowered to call an audible on that.
We give the managers and the departments a lot of discretion. And the cross-functioning usually happens as a result of the walkarounds where we recognize a need, and then that happens kind of in an ad hoc way. And also, I think Jared touched on it, but if he didn't, yeah, A6s many times do turn into A3s, where they think it's a quick win, and then it's like, oh, wait, let's take a step back.
Yeah, first.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Yeah, first, let me tell you, Jay, how lucky you are to have your mom and dad with you still.
Thank you.
Gary, that's a shout out to you. I have a question about how you perpetuate lean within your leadership ranks. Do you provide additional training development for that top level?
Well, first of all, it helps that Jay's an owner and he insists we do lean. That's really the main answer. But and then the president of the company who opened up this position, she wanted to elevate lean, and I ended up filling that position. But to have lean be on the leadership team also helps a lot, because now it's the president that wants it. You know, that probably took some years for her to come around to that.
I had to sell her, yeah.
And then, yeah, it's just part of the conversation constantly. And also, when I'm on in a leadership meeting, we don't just report to each other how our organizations are doing. We're all responsible for the business, and so lean might come up from a VP of business development in terms of how things are going, so there's a lot of ownership. But we've been at it for 20 plus years, and so there's been a lot of, and when you've got profit share, like, that's a really great way to incentivize people to work on the business. And so anyway, I feel fortunate to be part of Best Bath, because many companies may not have this level of commitment. I hope that answers your question.
Well, we're also lucky in that, like you mentioned, business development in our sales arm. We're lucky enough to have this buy-in from that group. We all know that value is dictated by what the customer is willing to pay for. And the sales team, they know they're the tip of the spear. There really is this good cross-collaboration, and I'll answer it too. I mean, I don't know that we give leadership different training. We really give everybody the same training, and we expect everybody to take the same training. Is there a question? Was there another? One more? Was there one over here? Oh, yeah. Real quick.
Do you have a favorite example of an A6?
You have a favorite example of an A6? Mine's when Jonathan's turned into an A3. What?
Oh, man. I don't know if this is a favorite, but it's one that just came up recently in accounting. There was an accounts receivable employee who had an idea to take a credit application form and change one field from fax numbers to emails, because he was spending 58 hours a year, half an hour per application, spending time on call trees, waiting to hear back from the customer to get an email address. That step is now gone, and it's just quick, and it's, and we're growing, so we're trending on more credit applications. So that 58 hours saved in 1 year is going to go up. So thank you all for joining us.
Hey, do you want to say something, Dad?
Sorry, Jared. So how many entrepreneurs in the room versus people working for large corporations?
Gary, come on up here.
Well, I need a show of hands, because I need to know if what I'm going to say makes any sense to you. Anyone in there is an entrepreneur, owns their own business?
We got 1, 2.
Okay,
3, 4.
Here's the deal. If you're willing to share your profits, then every employee working for you, if they understand what you're doing, will work smarter, harder, and be committed. Here's what happened. I used to struggle to make 4 or 5% net profit. We now are consistently around 15%. And on $60 million a year in sales, that's a lot of money. To this Idaho farm boy, it's a lot of money. And so not only do we do profit share, in 22, every employee got an additional $4,000. And that's what we call profit share plus. In other words, it's not weighted depending on your salary or your level of commitment, or your responsibility. And this past year, 23, every employee got an additional $5,000. Now, if you think you want people working hard for you, share your profits.
All right.